I will make sure that the link is here at this church. But share it as much as you can. Share this information. What I'm about to share is more of a, how do I say this? It's an icebreaker to what's going to be coming tonight, tomorrow night. Okay? It's not nearly as heavy, but tonight, tomorrow night, I will be naming names from affidavits of stuff that's going on behind the scenes that the mainstream media is not going to tell you about. So, I found this one right here. You can lead a human to knowledge, but you can't make him think. So very true. So what I want you to do is to put on your critical thinking cap skills tonight and to ask the Lord to show you what He wants you to see. Also, whenever I first did this particular presentation, I didn't think there was any other way to get out of the system but the way I did it. I can tell you before I start this, I believe that the Lord is working on setting us all free. But the stuff that I learned, you need to know. It took many years for the Israelites to leave Egypt. Many years. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. And so if you want to get out of the system sooner, there's a path. But if not, you can wait, and you need to be aware of what you see. Through all of this awakening and things that God was starting to show me, I had to learn to do this more than ever in my life. You think you did it before. And I didn't really do it the way I should have, or as much as I needed to for this. I want to share something from Julie Green.
It is about to be noticed. A change that will rock this world and bring a shaking never seen like this before. I am shaking you loose from those chains and from their system and from their slavery. Receive your freedom from me today, says the Redeemer. You can go back to all these different prophetic words. God talks about slavery. He talks about their system. He talks about chains. He talks about shackles. He talks about all these things that he's about to do. He's about to shake us loose. But that's what God is doing. He's shaking the shackles off. He's shaking those chains off. He's destroying this Babylonian system that has been put in place to keep you enslaved. He gave me a vision 12 years ago about us being in a worse enslavement than Israel. The reason why that is because Israel at least knew they were enslaved. We didn't know. So we weren't fighting it. We weren't fighting for our freedoms because we thought we were already free. It's a dangerous place to be when you don't even know that you're enslaved. That was a spiritual enslavement. So Satan doesn't do anything new. There's nothing new under the sun. He just changed it a little bit.
Ronald Reagan, if we ever forget that we aren't one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under. And we're getting there. 1 Peter 5:8 says, we are living in a time where Satan doesn't even hide anymore. And the world still can't see him. But that was being written way back when Peter was walking the earth. It is so much worse now. Our founding fathers went to great lengths to ensure that we were a republic and not a democracy, which they're constantly calling us a democracy. In fact, the word democracy does not appear in the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, or any of our other founding documents. And this is so very true. Not knowing the truth doesn't make you ignorant. Not wanting to know the truth is what makes you ignorant. See, I was such a good slave. I raised my children, let's say, I will be 55 in August. My children are in their 30s. I have one that really doesn't want to hear any of this. I'm waiting for the Lord. I have one who is awake. She was indoctrinated pretty bad. I'm almost wishing now I hadn't sent her to college. She's a physical therapist and a lovely young lady. And she loves the Lord. But she doesn't want to keep up with this stuff because she's using the same excuse I used to use. I believe God's got this, so I'm not going to worry about it. But God's given us things to do that we're not doing. Okay. It was in 2015, I believe, when WikiLeaks came up, and they released all those Clinton emails. I saw that big list of files because I was curious. I wanted to know. And it was a long list. I picked up one and looked at it, and it was a nothing burger. So I put it back down and said, I just don't have time for this. But there were other people that did have time. They made the time, and they found that dirty needle in that haystack. They made some videos about spirit cooking. And that's what finally woke my spirit up is, oh no, this is a spiritual war that we're in, and I needed to look at this. This is from Tony Podesta. If you know Tony Podesta, he was the right-hand man of Hillary Clinton. Okay? So, Marina Abramovic, does anybody know Marina Abramovic? Raise your hand. No? Okay. She wrote to Tony Podesta, I'm so looking forward to the spirit cooking dinner at my place. Do you think you'll be able to let me know if your brother is joining? And so, of course, he asked his brother. That's how come it was in the emails. Well, this is Tony Podesta. And you see his fingers are kind of all messed up and scarred there. He's got a Band-Aid on one of them. He's a very evil man, if you look further into him. This is Marina Abramovic, that all the celebrities absolutely fawn over. The pictures that I have in here are very mild for this presentation, okay? But you can tell she's satanic. This is one of her rooms that she does spirit cooking in, with a sharp knife cut deeply into the middle of your finger of your left hand and eat the pain. Which is, of course, what we saw on Tony Podesta's hand. This is another room that they were getting prepared for. I don't know if you can see. Can you see what's being read? It's, I'm not going to read it out because it's actually gross, but they have a little baby figurine down there in the corner that they have thrown blood on. This is real blood. All of this written on the wall is done in blood. Where the blood comes from, I don't know that. Another Marina Abramovic. Why is she taking pictures with a child? I'll go back to that a second. Before this point of these spirit cooking videos, I pretty much skated through life the way my daughter is. And I didn't care about what was going on in the world. I wasn't political at all. I would go vote for the party that most closely resembled what I wanted. The one that I trusted the most, that said the best things, that closely resembled what I wanted. And I did my part. I voted. I mean, after all, what else could I do? Well, I was busy. I was really too busy. I was busy being a mother and a wife. I was working in the church. I was also a full-time owner of a business. You know, I just was busy. And of course, when my children were born, we didn't have internet. I had no computers. So I didn't even think to look up anything. I mean, yeah, maybe I could have gone to the library, but that was too much time to have to go through all that. And my excuse, of course, for not paying attention was I trusted God enough with my life that I wasn't going to worry about it. But was I really listening to what God was telling me? Maybe He was trying to tell me things, and I really wasn't hearing because I was too busy and had too many things running through my mind. I put God in the box and said, this is the way He works, and that's that. That spirit cooking video woke me up to a world that I didn't think existed in modern day society. You know, I thought witches were few and far between, and most likely in backwoods tribes. And I began my research that day. Since then, my nose has been in the books or on the internet. I realize that this battle is not physical. It's not political. It is spiritual. And we need to be on our knees. My Heavenly Father placed a hunger for knowledge in me that summer. He had to jolt me awake because I wasn't seeing the signs that were all around me. And I had allowed the world to create a perfect slave of me, and I didn't know it. So I'm here to share what God has shown me in my quest for knowledge of things kept hidden from us, yet flaunted right in front of our faces. John Adams said liberty cannot be preserved without general knowledge among the people. And God has a lot to say about lack of knowledge. Hosea 4:6, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me. Seeing that thou hast forgotten the law of thy God, I will also forget thy children. Oh, excuse me there. 2 Peter 2:20-22. This one's very harsh. For if after they have escaped the defilements of the world by the knowledge of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, they are again entangled in them and are overcome, the last state has become worse for them than the first. Isaiah 5:13. Therefore my people are gone into captivity, because they have no knowledge, and their honorable men are famished, and their multitude dried up with thirst. I'll show you that in just a second. My grandfather was a really big man. He was big and muscular. And he'd make his bicep muscle jump, and he'd tell us kids he kept his frog in there. That was his pet frog. And we always wanted to see that pet frog jump in his bicep there. And I really believed him for a while. You know, you believe everything your grandparents tell you. But then he also told us the story of how you properly boil a frog. You put it in that pot of water that's nice and cool and comfortable, and slowly bring up that heat. Since they don't register in the brain that it's, moving up, they don't jump out until they're properly boiled. You know, if you put a frog in hot water, it's going to jump out immediately because it knows. Satan knows we're like that. He has worked inch by inch by inch to get us to where we are today. I remember on Saturday mornings as a child, my mother would fuss at us kids because we all sat in front of the TV and watched cartoons. That was just what you did from the time you got up till noon. There was cartoons on. And that's the only time, really. I mean, now you can watch cartoons anytime you want. But back then, it was Saturday morning, and we always wanted to watch the Smurfs. And my mother was complaining. She didn't like us watching the Smurfs because of Papa Smurf and him being a wizard. And that was inching in on us, witchcraft. So was Bewitched and a lot of other things that I look back on. And it's like, at that time, it's innocent. And us kids would complain to Daddy. Daddy would override Mom. And we watched the Smurfs. I remember when Harry Potter came out, my daughter wanted to read Harry Potter books. I had found out that they use actual incantations and spells in those books, and I didn't want to let my daughter watch them or read the books. It wasn't but just a couple weeks ago I saw she had Harry Potter little things on her Crocs, her Crocs shoes, and she's like, I know, Mom, you don't like them, but it's really innocent. It's nothing. It's not innocent. We need to recognize those things are not innocent. That is their way of inching in to our lives. You know, I made a TikTok video telling the story about this frog. And I related it to us as today, what we're going through. And they took it down on the exact same day. Because they don't want you to wake up. They don't want you to have knowledge. They want you ignorant. Because when you are ignorant, they can control you and slowly steer you into whatever direction they want you to go. I mean, in masses. This is what they call Operation Mockingbird. Well, who are they? You know? Well, the Bible speaks about who they are. They're the ones who pass their children through the fire for Baal and Moloch. Time and time again, God would rescue his children. They would always turn back to Satan worship. This was after they had been through all those plagues, and it happened to the Egyptians, and not in the land of Goshen. They had seen the miraculous working of the Lord, but Moses has gone just a little long, and they want a calf, you know, an idol. Kind of resilient, isn't he? See, today, we are debt slaves. And the top of it, up here at the very top, it's got, of course, the Queen of England.
You can't see.
You can't see it? You've got the Council of 13, which is the world's richest families, the most powerful families. They are Satanists. The Committee of 300, powerful subfamilies. You know, it works all the way down, World Financial Control. But see, when you get down here to the corporations and the religions and the governments and education and media, who controls them all is the ones at the top, because they're the ones who own it. New World Order organizational chart, the Illuminati royal bloodlines. They are royal bloodlines in their opinion. Let me make sure our map here. So did you ever wonder what happened to all these idol worshiping people? You know? Somewhere in history they just seem to disappear. You know, the Bible don't really talk about it that much. And of course, history doesn't talk about it that much. Well, back then, they were doing what they're doing today. They were, you know, sacrificing their babies. Sacrificing other people's babies that they stole from them. And the emperors and the czars and the kings of those days, they didn't like that. And so they decided that they were going to tell them, you leave our land. We don't want you here. Or you convert. We know this because some very good historians have found some letters from one of these tribes that was in somebody's land that was being told that. And they wrote to the head of their church and said, we need you to come help us fight because they're trying to take us out. And they were told, no, we're not going to come help you fight. Instead, we want you to stay, and we want you to feign conversion while secretly worshiping our God, what they consider the true God, you know. They believe that our Lord usurped the throne from Satan. This is what they believe. We know better. When they were given that choice, they're like, okay, we'll stay. Because the head of Satan's church told them, you stay there and you teach your children to become apothecaries and lawyers and business owners and you're gonna infiltrate from the inside out and be their undoing. Well, that's been many, 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 many generations ago. But Satan, he plays the long game. He doesn't care how long it's gonna take, because he's got a plan, and it's always the same. Okay? My glasses back on so I can see here. Today, the people that were doing that are the Illuminati and the secret societies of today. And it really doesn't matter if you believe in God or Satan and hell, or heaven and hell. It's the fact that they believe it. And that's the evil we're up against. So we're told that America is the land of laws. Oh, hold on a minute. I'm going ahead of myself. I want to show you some more pictures. Okay? This is a veil. You know, this is a veil. Did you ever think about the one on Wall Street as being a veil? That's what it is. And we just thought it was a statue, a work of art. What about this one? That's put out in modern day time. You can tell by the seats that they're sitting on. They're getting to be pretty bold about it. This is a Moloch statue that they're putting all over the place. I don't know if you've seen those. But they're a lot more prevalent than we know. And then, of course, whenever we overturned Roe v. Wade, the Satanic Temple comes out and wants to go after the abortion bans, because that's part of their worship, the sacrifice of those babies. It's like, oh, my goodness, they just outed themselves pretty good there. And they don't care anymore. Now, we're told in America that we are a land of laws. But nothing could be further from the truth. We are a nation of mandates that's meant for us and not for them. America's run by people who are lawless, and the law is whatever the powers in charge say it is. And unfortunately, we've allowed this to happen. We're the ones who stood back to keep the peace, to let them take one more inch after one more inch, and they kept us busy being entertained, fighting each other in an economy that we felt safe in. Well, isn't that how you trap an animal? You put out that bait, you disguise the trap, and you make them feel safe until it's too late. Well, I guess we've been that frog content to float in the water as it began to boil. Well, one day the weight of my inaction really came down on me hard. I remember I was in there, I was thinking about it, and I was praying while I was working in my garden. And I just started bawling, because I realized I hadn't done anything to fight it. And I was believing everything they were saying. I grieved for a week and had to ask the Lord, please forgive me. I didn't see, I didn't know. This has been a very difficult journey for me. You see, by not doing anything, we're consenting. Because not doing anything is the same as consent. And I break down before my Heavenly Father, and I repented. And now, I'm like a mama bear wanting to fight for my kids. I think what hurts me the most is my daughter says, why do you become so political? I am not political. I am spiritual, and I'm fighting the devil. Albert Einstein even said the world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything. So if you've ever built anything, you know how important the foundation is that you're building on. You gotta make sure it's good and sturdy. If you wanna make sure that the second floor is gonna support something heavy, you're gonna go underneath it and inspect above. Well, then you're standing under it. Understanding is standing under the foundation that you're building on. To stand under or to submit to something else. See, we've got to understand words. And humans are word-controlled creatures. So we need to establish what words mean. So for the first time in my life, I looked at a Black's Law Dictionary. Did you know the dictionaries that they use are different than our Webster? Quite a bit. And the definitions are very different in there. Do our words matter? Yeah, the Bible even says so, but I don't think I even really realized it or knew it. There's a Roman maxim in law, for he that would be deceived, let him. Meaning if you're so ignorant as to be deceived, then that's your problem. And that's how they want you. There's a whole world in occultism that's operating today throughout the whole world, in which if you use certain words, and when those words are used in court, they don't mean the same thing at all. So what's law? You know? Well, law is an acronym, basically, for the three different jurisdictions of law: land, air, and water. Land stands for titles and rights and common law. Air is executor and trust law. Water is contracts, admiralty, and maritime law, which is unfortunately what we're under at this moment. And anytime you're doing anything using money or banking, you're using the law of water. This began in the land of Canaan. Way back then, the Canaanites were a Phoenician bloodline, and Canaan meant merchant or banker. And a merchant comes from mer, for the sea, as in mermaid. So we have merchant bankers and the Statue of Liberty. It is not the Statue of Freedom. It wasn't put in water, you know, or it had to be put in water because it is the Statue of Liberty, and liberty is what a sailor gets when he pulls into port on a ship. He gets liberty because he's not free. He gets a little bit of time off. So here's an example of how the law of water works. Why do you go to court? We go to court because we play basketball or tennis on a court. Well, how do you play tennis? With a racket. They don't pick these words by chance. They've been around for a very long time. The whole idea of going to court is to put the ball in the other guy's court. One team of lawyers throws the ball to the other team of lawyers, and on it goes, back and forth. And the judge wears black because he's a referee. He could care less who wins. He is paid regardless. And the judge rules from a bench. And bench in Latin is bank. So he rules from a bank. And where do you find banks? You find banks on each side of a river. What does a riverbank do? It directs the flow of currency. Your money is the currency because it is the cash flow. You see how these words work together like this? I never saw it. See? Definition right here. Bank. A bench or seat, the bench of justice, the bench or tribunal occupied by the judges, as the seat of judgment, a court. The full bench or full court. Okay. Let me give you another example. Why are all ships referred to as female? Well, it's because maritime law says so, that they're supposed to be referred to as female. And when a ship pulls into harbor, they're carrying items for money. Well, they usually travel along the canal until it sits in its berth when it's at the dock. While parked at the dock, the captain or purser has to provide for the port authorities a certificate of manifest. Because yesterday the ship was not here, but today it is, so it has manifested. So all the products of the ship has manifested as well and has to come off the water. Well, all ships have a captain, and the word captain comes from the Latin word capital, or money. So the captain represents the money that's on board the ship. When it's a large ship, the captain hires help. He gets a purser. The purser runs to the dock and presents the certificate of manifest for each item with information, weight, length, color. He is responsible for all the items leaving and going onto the ship, and the money to pay for it. And by the way, the purser is the root word for person. So we're the pursers. We're responsible for all the money. Consequently, everything coming off the ship represents money. They are an admiralty maritime product, and this is true all over the world. Now, that's another certificate of manifest, and that's actually for a person that's arrived. When you're born, your mother's water broke and you came through the birth canal. That's why you have a birth certificate, because they are considering you a maritime admiralty product. Your mother delivered you. We used to be born and recorded in the family Bible, but no, now we have birth certificates. And sometimes when a product is delivered, it's broken or stillborn. So you need to have a death certificate signed by the dock tender. All the words and terms of maritime admiralty banking terms. So understand that lawyers, judges, courts, and government are all under international maritime law. It's an extraordinary story of occult and treason and crimes against the state. There's never been a country on the face of the earth as far back in history as you can go, in which the people rose up and demanded their right to be free. Never. The concept of spiritual, intellectual, and physical freedom is a concept that has, on the whole, never existed except, when we founded this country, which there's a little bit more of the law of the sea. But when we founded this country, for a short time, we fought back, and we understood that we were sovereigns, and we owned our own bodies. That our freedom was given to us by our Heavenly Father, and we fought for it. Constitution. Maximilian, the secret of freedom lies in educating people, whereas the secret of tyranny is in keeping them ignorant. So we were warned throughout the years not to allow this freedom to be taken from us. Many presidents through the years have warned us, but as Jesus said, let those with ears to hear, let them hear. We didn't understand what was being said to us because we felt safe floating in our cool water. Let's go over a few quotes here. Benjamin Franklin outside Independence Hall. When the Constitutional Convention of 1787 ended, Mrs. Powell of Philadelphia asked Benjamin Franklin, "Well, doctor, what have you got, a republic or a monarchy?" Which monarchy is a democracy. With no hesitation whatsoever, Franklin responded, "A republic, if you can keep it." A lot of people don't remember that "if you can keep it," which means that it's something active that we have to be doing. Thomas Jefferson, educate and inform the whole mass of the people. They are the only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty. See, they knew Satan was going to come after it again. This is Grant. Satan plans to destroy liberty and freedom, economic, political, and religious, and to set up in place thereof the greatest, most widespread, most complete tyranny that has ever oppressed men. He is working under such perfect disguise that many do not recognize either him or his methods. Reagan. I remember Reagan. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We did pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. And John F. Kennedy, our biggest fighter, which is why, of course, he was killed. This was before I was born, of course. And I wasn't told a lot of this that he said in school. The world is very different now, yet the same revolutionary beliefs for which our forebears fought are still at issue around the globe. The belief that the rights of man come not from the generosity of the state, but from the hand of God. He says today we need a nation of Minutemen, citizens who are not only prepared to take up arms, but citizens who regard the preservation of freedom as a basic purpose of their daily life, and who are willing to consciously work and sacrifice for that freedom. The cause of liberty, the cause of America, cannot succeed with any lesser effort. Kennedy came from one of the bloodlines. So I got to tell you, in doing these researches, not everybody that was born into one of these bloodlines agreed. They were raised in it, but they also didn't want to be in it. And so they left and wanted to start saving the people. He's giving us so many clues from the insiders because he knew. We are not afraid to entrust the American people with unpleasant facts, which is going to be today and tomorrow night. Foreign ideas, alien philosophies, and competitive values for a nation that is afraid to let its people judge the truth and falsehood in an open market is a nation that is afraid to trust, that is afraid of its people. This one right here, most eye-opening, for we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Another one. There's a plot in this country to enslave every man, woman, and child. Before I leave this high and noble office, I intend to expose this plot. That was 7 days before his assassination. See, this guy right here is our traitor. As you see, before 1868, all Americans were considered sovereigns. But they, and you know who they are, were out there planning and plotting to get us back under their control. Each time we fall for a slightly different scheme, but ultimately it all ends the same. I've heard it said the best slave is somebody who doesn't know they're a slave. You see, starting in 1868 and finalizing in 1871, there was a company incorporated, and the founders of that company stipulated that all members or employees of that corporation was to be called citizens. You see, Ulysses S. Grant was elected president in 68, and by the time he was at the end of that presidency into 1871, he had completed what he wanted to complete. The 14th Amendment. Everybody looks at the 14th Amendment, and what do they think it is? The end of slavery. Well, it was slavery in one form for black people. But instead, it was also putting us all in slavery. It was making everybody citizens. The background of the 14th Amendment. What were the two major reasons for the passage of the 14th Amendment? To overturn Dred Scott and guarantee citizenship rights for an equality for African Americans. But what it did, it also put everybody on the same playing field and put us all in slavery. You see, citizen is a compound word, city meaning state, and zen meaning servant. This corporation was called the United States Corporation. So today, if you're asked if you're a citizen of the United States, you think you're being asked are you lawfully in the country to do business. Well, that's not what you're really being asked. They didn't ask you if you were in America lawfully. They asked you a specific question. Are you, out of your own mouth, testifying that you are a citizen of the United States? Because that means you are an employee or servant of a foreign corporation operating under international maritime law and subject to the rules and mandates of that corporation. Today, the President of the United States is the president of a privately owned corporation. President is always a word used in corporate law. That is why the president can give executive orders, because he is the head of the executive of the corporation. Only banks, corporations have presidents. Okay? Words and terms have been used to trick and enslave us since the serpent told Eve in the garden that she wasn't going to die. Oh, what was that? I put something in there and didn't even know what I put in there, I suppose. The old serpent never changed his methods, and he takes advantage of our lack of knowledge. So I had to put something in here for a reason, so I'll figure out what that is.
Put this video clip together is the USA Corporation Act of 1871.
Passed by Congress, the Act of 1871 provided a government for the 10-mile parcel of land known as the District of Columbia, allowing Washington, D.C. to act as a corporation outside of the original Constitution of the United States. The Act of 1871 changed our country's founding fathers' original Constitution for the United States for America to the Constitution of the United States of America. A mixture of subtle yet impactful wording, as well as cleverly marketing this act as a way to unify the territorial government for the entire District of Columbia, are contributing factors to how such a major act flew under the radar, ultimately overturning the United States constitutional republic. Since 1871, the federal government has usurped nearly all the power that was formerly held in the hands of the people. How on earth was Congress able to pass a separate constitution and incorporate the United States? In 1871, the U.S. was going through a lot of turmoil. The nation was pretty broke and vulnerable after the Civil War. And the London Bakers, also known as the Rothschilds, who, side note, wish I could get through a video without having to mention them, were ready to make a deal with Congress to remedy that turmoil. The Rothschilds and other European financiers made a lot of credit available in the aftermath of the Civil War, as a means to 1, fight Lincoln's greenback monetary system, and 2, collect interest from those who desperately needed the money, which would be the United States government at the time. A corporation, by definition, is a legal entity separate from its owners. In its most notable feature, a corporation protects its owners from personal liability for corporate debts and obligations, well, within limits.
You have to look at is the president is the chief executive officer of this corporation called the United States of America.
Was the Act of 1871 as harmless as some claim? Just an act to provide a government for the District of Columbia and nothing more? Well, let's look at the ramifications of the act being passed. Who benefited from it? Is the Act of 1871 the reason why Congress passed the Federal Reserve Act of 1913? A private corporation established their private bank, acting as the central bank of the United States. But hold up, the Federal Reserve isn't even a government institution. It's a privately owned banking system. Comment below if they taught you that in school, because they sure didn't teach me. Consequently, the federal government went essentially bankrupt in the 1930s, while Social Security numbers started being assigned in 1936. Coincidence?
Interesting. The Federal Reserve.
Okay. Just to give you a little bit of side note, it's not in this presentation, but there were 3 very rich people that did not want the Federal Reserve to happen. And they were all tricked onto taking the trip on the Titanic. The Rothschilds also got on the boat because they were all supposed to go together. Well, the Rothschilds all filed off that boat right before it took off. And so those three men were killed, were drowned when the Titanic went down. And there's evidence now that that hole in the side of the Titanic went outward. It was a bomb on that boat. So they did that. They killed all those people just to kill the three that was opposing him in Congress. 3 of the richest men in the world. This is how they've enslaved us, with fiat money. Okay, let me continue on. This was what I thought was going to come up in a second. I'd forgotten to make that other little clip in there. But yes, the serpent has never changed his ways. So I want to tell you a story. This is a story of a new mother who's happy and excited for her life with her young family. The mother who grew up properly and, like the majority of us, was educated in governmentally controlled public schools. She was brought up to be a good citizen and proud of her country and its government. Then one day, at the end of 9 months of pregnancy, she walks through the doors of a family hospital, which, by the way, nowadays, they're all family hospitals, which is a place you can safely leave your child. She's about to have a major procedure, commonly known as childbirth, and she delivers her precious, healthy baby, a gift from God. Well, while under the influence of painkillers and wanting nothing more than to be home in her own comfortable bed, the nurse comes in and asks her to pick a name for her flesh and blood living soul, and hands her a stack of papers to sign to register her baby with the Department of Human Resources before she can leave. Well, that's a certificate of live birth. Unknowingly, under duress and without full and honest disclosure, she signs in the box marked informant, one who gives someone up to another. This right here, you see how it says informant? I believe this one is my son's birth certificate. And his father's signature, and signature of informant. Never really realized that. So informant means someone who gives someone up to another. She gives title to her beautiful baby up to the state. She takes her little bundle of joy home, not knowing what the long-term consequences of her actions are. Her baby is now registered as a vessel, an entity, a transmitting utility. And for the rest of life is registered, bonded, and insured, and placed in the Cesta QV Public Trust. That was the Cesta QV Act of 1666. And is forever bought and sold as U.S. Treasury bonds under LEIs through the CUSIP numbers. This baby becomes the full faith and credit of the United States, Inc. So I don't know if you guys know this, but they didn't have the gold anymore. Our money is not backed by gold. It is backed by us. By our labor, by what we spend at their big box stores that they own. Birth certificates. Their secret but true purpose is to act as unilateral contracts under seal by operation of law, each creating a statutory artificial person, corporate sole public U.S. citizen with an all caps name, which is why your bills come in all caps. Let me bring that a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why your name is in all caps for your for contracts and everything. That is your straw man. That's not you. 3 days to a month after the date born live, the baby is officially registered and becomes the vessel, presumed forever dead, lost at sea. And hopefully, it never returns to the land and claims its minor estate. This has to give you trust. Until then, the government is in guardianship of your trust, and they have done everything in their power to keep you from knowing about it. The mother, not knowing what took place, not having full and honest disclosure, not having been taught through K through 12 a government-funded and controlled curriculum, goes home and does as she's been taught and raises her child the best she can, teaching him or her the same things that she was taught, so the cycle can begin again in the next generation. And because parents have signed over their guardianship of their child's trust to the government, CPS can now legally enter your home and remove your child. You unknowingly gave them that right with your signature. The government, through fraudulent, tacit agreement of one's own consent and one's own lack of knowledge, presumes and assumes to have title of all of our property and your children, and jurisdiction over all aspects of you and your family. From Black's Law, 4th edition. Make sure you can see that. Silence of a party implies his consent. He who is silent is considered assenting. He who is silent does not indeed confess. It is true that he does not deny. The government's Justice Department and its Bar Association members, which that's British Accreditation Registry, that's not even American. Members, judges, attorneys, and its agents and agencies only have authority through this assumption of tacit agreement and presumption of jurisdiction of the person, legal entity, because of your status of U.S. citizen, employee and resident of the District of Columbia through the Postal Code. Regardless of what state you live in, your zip code places you in D.C. I had no idea that's what the zip code was, but that's what it is. John D. Rockefeller, the ability to deal with people as a purchasable a commodity as sugar or coffee, and I will pay more for that ability than for any other under the sun. We are purchasable commodities. You see, they operate under the color of law to deprive you of all your rights through your consent to the privileges of citizenship and removes your natural God-given rights. But the government nor its agents have any such authority over a man or woman or their private property. Only of its artificially created beings, your straw man. Only through your own consent do they rule over you, usually while you're kicking and screaming and crying and not knowing how to get it to you. This is how they pull the greatest con ever created. Well, let's talk about how to win. It's all about your stats. Now this is where I said that for me, I chose to do this. If you don't want to wait, however many years it takes for the Lord to free all of us, because I do believe He is, then there is a path to go for this. But the information here is stuff you need to know, okay? You can choose which status you want to be out of several, but they didn't want you to know you had an option. You need to know who you are, and you must prove to them that you are not lost at sea and presumed dead, that you are a living, breathing soul of the Most High God. It's also about standing. And here's more stuff about citizenship that's backing up what I'm saying. Do you guys really need to read this, or you just gonna, or can you just take my word? Just wondering. I'm getting no responses.
It's nice if you zoom in every now and then.
Well, that's zoomed in about as good as it's gonna be. Right there.
Okay.
Any person who becomes a citizen of the United States solely by virtue of the provisions of section 301 may within 6 months after the effective date of that section, or within 6 months after reaching the age of 18 years, whichever date is latter, become a national, but not a citizen of the United States, by making a declaration under oath before any court established by the Constitution or laws of the United States, or any court of record in the Commonwealth. But see, this is the way I see it. When you work for Walmart, you have to wear their uniform. You have to be there at a certain time. You have to clock in by this time, clock out by that time. You have to go by their rules. You have to greet people the way they want you to greet them. But when you walk in and you're just walking into Walmart, you're not bound by the rules of an employee. When you are a U.S. citizen, you are bound by their rules. There are so many rules that they put on us, a license for this, a license for that. You know, the speeding limit. You can't do this unless you do this. You know, permits for this and permits for that. A state national isn't bound by that anymore because we're not a U.S. citizen. I believe that the Lord has set it as free, like I said. But I was not patient, and I wanted out of Babylon. And so I left. You see, it's about standing as well. To become a state national, you have to have knowledge. And you have to have competence and the strength to stand on your own unalienable rights. It's not unalienable. It's unalienable. So they can't put a lien against it. You know where your rights are and are listed and how to bring them up in court because you will have to defend yourself. Satan is always going to fight against you. You learn how to correct the errors that have been committed in this path through presumption, assumption, and tacit agreement, and hearsay. You know how to hold the government accountable. A dead entity, a corporation, cannot stand and cannot have standing. Only a man or a woman, living souls of flesh and blood, can stand and have standing. You see, this is your journey. It's all about you and your ability to, and your right to object, to dissent, to rebuke, to repudiate, to refute, to rescind, and to say no to hearsay, to say no to any and all presumptions and assumptions, to say no to all contracts and signatures for the reason of fraud. Learn how to put the burden of proof back on them. Did you know that an attorney can only represent an entity, a corporation, a person, a minor, someone infirmed, incompetent, and a ward of the state? You cannot speak for yourself if you have an attorney. You are giving up your rights simply by having one. They cannot represent a man or a woman who is competent. So where are the claims against you? You know, if you look at an attorney, a person appointed to act for another in business, to attorn, or represent. What are other words for represent? Betray, symbolize, present. They're representing you is what they're doing. This is a Supreme Court ruling. All codes, rules, and regulations are unconstitutional and lacking due process of law. A code or statute is not a law. A code is not a law. Your speed limit's not a law. That is a So where's the claims against you? You know, where's the first-hand witness, the notarized affidavits, the sworn testimony that was sworn under oath and under the pains and penalty of perjury? Did you know the Supreme Court of the United States says that rules, codes, statutes are not, and ordinances are not law. They are corporate bylaws. And the Supreme Court of the United States says that since governments have chosen to incorporate that they must follow the same rules as any other corporation, that they are de facto, which means without fact, they are not de jure and true. So I didn't know what de facto and de jure was, so I wanted to look them up a little bit more. De facto, down here at the bottom, which I thought was pretty neat, standards that grow to become adopted as standard, but they're not really standard. They're declared to be standard as de jure. Here's another one. De jure means lawful and legitimate. De facto is that it's what is in practice and reality, even though the laws do not officially recognize them. What's the opposite of de jure? Unlawfully, illegitimately, and existent, unfortunately. Other words for de jure is lawfully, according to the law, and legitimate. So even the Supreme Court says that our government right now is de facto. The Supreme Court of the United States says that all corporate bylaws are colorable. Colorable means without fact, voluntary, or must be obeyed with consent. See USC, Title 18, Section 242, deprivation of rights under the color of law. And that's what they're doing, is they're acting like they're law, but they're not really law. Did you know that all courts are banks and all judges are bankers? I touched on that a little bit earlier. All are for-profit corporations. All indictments are a true bill. And if you cannot pay the bill, they use you, the man or woman, as surety for the bond, because they're after your substituted trust. While you're behind bars, they're dipping into your trust. So they're getting money. See, they're not after the man or woman, the living soul, the flesh and blood. Everything that the de facto government does is all about money. I think the Bible says the love of money is the root of all evils. Well, this is just the beginning of fraud that they've done to us living souls, men and women. There are many ways they get us to consent. It all starts with the birth certificate and your mother signing as an informant. They get us to consent in every form they ask us to fill out for things such as driver's licenses, marriage licenses, which is one of their strongest contracts the de facto have. And every time you get a letter in the mail and you use that zip code, it puts you in their venue. You see, this journey to become free is unlearning everything that you've been taught and relearning what we should have been taught. We have to learn how to take control of oneself, to take dominion of the law, land, air, and water. We have to learn this, so even after God sets us free, that they're not able to do this again. I felt like this many times. It's like, are you willing to give up a lot of time to do this? There's stuff you still need to know. And maybe you'll find out things that surprise you. In Genesis 1:26-28, God gave man dominion over the land, air, and water, and he told us to subdue it. Well, did you ever wonder what subdue means? It means to know everything there is about it. Subdue, conquer, repress, suppress, subjugate, tame, overcome, master, vanquish, squash, crush. Sounds pretty rough. there, don't it? Well, I believe the original word was kabosh, which means to subdue, cultivate, organize in such a way that it thrives, grows, and flourishes. It was twisted to kibosh. You see the difference in the spelling? Which means to put an end to something or to dispose of it decisively. To have dominion over comes from the Hebrew word radah. This is where I got this information right here. Let's see where I'm at. Okay, radah literally means to rule by going down and walking among your subjects as an equal. Genesis 2:15 clarifies God's directive. The Lord God took the man and put him in the garden of Eden to till it and keep it. The phrase to till comes from the Hebrew verb abad, which means to cultivate. Bring forth the best, promote, improve the growth of by labor and attention. The phrase keep it comes from the Hebrew verb shamar, meaning to keep, watch over, preserve, pay close attention to, protect. To do this, you're going to have to know everything there is about it. So that was our directive. Man's taken God's law and turned it into something that God never intended for us. God's plan was for our freedom. Man's plan put us into slavery. And when the Bible was printed in the language of the common people, the truth of our plight became clear to those who studied the Bible themselves. The Geneva and the original 1611 King James Bibles were staples in the luggage of the pilgrims. Our founders used the Bible to declare our freedom from the tyranny of the British Crown and to write our original Constitution. I believe that the early Americans saw what we're beginning to see now. When the Bible talks of Babylon, it is not meaning a geographical location. What God is talking about is the corrupt, satanic, governmental system and the ones worshiping Satan. 90% of our current government has sold their souls to Satan and has tricked us into being part of it by becoming slaves. I don't want to be yoked to Satan any longer. I'm going to show you some things. The Beatles, Illuminati hand signals. This one is the 666. This one's the devil horns. There's Clinton with his 666 symbol. Hillary with her devil's horns. Oh, shocker. I voted for him. Not a shocker. But yeah, they're very proudly showing off. I don't know who this guy is, but he's got to be important because he's talking to Putin. And look at that symbol that he's doing up there on his hand. Angela Merkel. That is also in this Illuminati symbol. Spirit of the Antichrist is in this fellow. That guy looks evil. Don't you ever notice all their symbols? The symbolism that they're always putting out? We don't seem to do that. A quote from Brad Pitt. I could really try on something different. For myself, that was Satanism. It's working out really well. I made a pact, that's fine. Ron Paul, face it, you cannot be in politics without being in the satanic network, period. Heinrich Himmler, when you Christians have finished burying your God in the sky, come to us. We heathens will again show you the Creator. And do not think we have settled accounts with you Christians. Walter Lippmann, the devil is merely a fallen angel. And when God lost Satan, he lost one of his best lieutenants. Really? Henry Kissinger. Who controls the food supply, controls the people. Who controls the energy, can control whole continents. Who controls the money, can control the world. And they've definitely got themselves in a position of controlling the money. Revelation 18:4-5, final call for repentance. Then I heard another voice from heaven say, "Come out of her, my people, so that you will not share in her sins, so that you will not receive any of her plagues. For her sins are piled up to heaven, and God has remembered her crimes." All the forces of darkness cannot stop what God has ordained. You know? It's time for us to put on the armor of God and expose the fraud and return to our God-given freedoms. Thomas Jefferson, when once a republic is corrupted, there is no possibility of remedying any of the growing evils, but by removing the corruption and restoring its lost principles. Every other correction is either useless or a new evil. Remember this quote? That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government laying its foundation on such principles, and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. I do know the state nationals are working. They are banding together, and they're working to bring back the real government that has pretty much been put on hold. Because what's happened is they came in, and for every state, they made a corporation for their government. They basically usurped it. And the people didn't know any different. You know? I look now and I realize that President Trump is president over the republic. Biden is president over the corporation. When President Trump went in, he actually bankrupted the corporation. When Biden got put back in, it is now reincorporated under the White House Inc. You can go look that up. So if we restore our constitutional republic, do you want to live in it? Or continue to live under the rule of the corporation acting as government? It's not going to happen unless we stand up and do something about it. See, we flew this flag only a few years. This is the United States civil flag of peacetime. Did you even know we had one? I didn't know about it until this. The flag that you normally see with the stripes going the other direction is the war flag. We've been in a perpetual state of war for so many years. And when you see a flag that has the gold fringe around it, then you are in Admiralty Court. That's what it means.
The Lord this day, I say, a great awakening there will be, because it's a great awakening with me. For far too long, my children have done things without me. They've done things in their own strength, their own ability, their own wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. They've done things without me. But this is a time to be set free. Yes, to be set free with me. A freedom that you have never known. A freedom you didn't even know existed. Yes, that's coming. Why do you think the enemy is trying so hard to take every freedom away from you? To bring so much darkness, to bring so much division, to bring so much confusion? Why? Why do you think he's doing that? So this freedom and this great awakening to me does not take place. That is his ultimate goal, to destroy your spirits. Yes, to destroy your spirits, to destroy the light, to destroy your power that I've given to you. It's inside of you. It's already there. But in most of my children, it is dormant. Because it has been shielded, outshadowed, however you want to put that. It has been hidden from you. Your enemy has tried to put so much in this world, to bring so much heaviness, to bring so much despair, and to bring so much darkness that you wouldn't even search for the light. That you wouldn't search for me. My children don't even look for me. They weren't for the longest time. I was just a God who sits on this throne. And I pick and choose who I healed. And I pick and choose who was free or who lived or died. How can people think that about me? But a lie crept in when the curse came in. A lie about me. To twist with such wickedness that people thought I was someone else when I'm not that at all. But my church, the body of Christ, the body where my son is the head, believed these things about me. And for so many years, there's been a darkness, like a shroud over this earth. Where they were believing lie after lie after lie. And wouldn't even hear the truth when it was said to them. Father, how does that make sense? I said in my word, if you have ears to hear, let them hear. Because there's so much deception, they would hear the word of truth, but they wouldn't hold on to it. They let it go. They let so much truth go. They let me go. Because your enemy had brought in darkness, circumstances, tests and trials. He brought in manipulation. He brought in propaganda. He brought in the system, a godless, evil, and dark system that you see that's trying to run this world, trying to run the governments around the world, trying to connect each and every one of them to each other. I told you I sit in the heavenlies and laugh. This connection will not be. Oh no, because of me. I am stepping in. And I told you their walls are coming down. Some of the walls already are. I am opening a great and mighty curtain. This curtain, I am going to show the world who they are. Who they really, truly are. People like the Biden. I told you there is going to be a great unmasking of that person. You've seen the ratings. You've seen the cognitive function decline. You've seen these things. I told you about these things. I told you about your news media. They won't stand in my way. I will even show you the earpiece Obama was using. I will show you these things. I will show you how he led a shadow government from his home. I will show you. You will hear of the words that they have spoken. But they will protect him more than others. Yes, the globalists will protect Obama more than others. You will see. But don't worry, because they have to deal with me. My children, this great awakening has started. Blinders have been removed. But something great is on the horizon. A darkness. And things that will go on that will try people's faith. This is my warning. Not many more left. Because the time has come where judgment is going to strike. I have told you this before, and I am saying this again. The judgments of Egypt is nothing compared to the judgments that are about to be poured out. And when you see these judgments, and when you say chaos or mayhem, don't focus on those things. Because at the same time, or darkness will seem to get darker and harder to deal with. But my light is going to shine greater and is going to destroy every part of that darkness against you. They're not winning. My children.
One day after I'm long gone, you will remember me and say we should have stopped the nuclear program in Israel, abolished the Federal Reserve, and kicked all secret societies, occultists, usurpers, and Zionists out of our wonderful country. To keep it that way. But it is never too late. Just remember that. Guys, what we're going to end up going into, it's going to get worse before it gets better. This governmental system that we are in right now has to be completely torn down for God to rebuild it the way He wants it. So as you see banks start to close, as you see things start to happen that look really bad, you need to look only to the Lord. And know that this is something He's doing. Just like happened in Egypt. It took several years. I didn't know how many years. I had to ask heaven about that. I didn't know exactly how many years. He believes it was around 8 years that it took to go through all of that. This is not going to be an immediate fix. That is one thing that I have had to learn through my life. I wanted things to be an immediate fix. I wanted a miracle. And God sometimes takes time. It takes time. And we have to trust the Lord no matter what. I have books, information out in the foyer. If you're interested in anything, I mean, what I just did in this short period of time, I mean, I've gone to so many David Straight seminars that he takes 3 whole days. So this is just a touch. And tonight and tomorrow night will not be anything about the state national. Okay? It is going to be other things that's going to awaken your mind and show you what is happening in our government, in our police force, in our military, in our schools. Because it has infiltrated everywhere. Everywhere. And we do not even know it. If you don't know about it, you can't recognize it. You can't pray against it. We need to take our land back. Satan, anytime there's something bad that's happened on the land, Satan takes possession of that land. And are we as Christians going and taking it back? We're not. Do we even know to do it? I knew to bless my house. But did I ever think to pray for my tires on my car? Or anoint my shoes? And say, Lord, I claim back everywhere my foot treads for you. And Satan must leave. He has no dominion here. You need to know what to pray for. And you need to know what to recognize. I implore you to come tonight, tomorrow night. This was light compared to what I'm going to share later. Okay? I'm going to give it back to Pastor. Well, if anybody has questions, you can ask. Yeah.
All right, before we close, we just want to make sure that if you're understanding what Tammy's presenting,